welcome to this edition of the Native News Update on this Thursday, January 6th. I'm your host for today's program, Paul DeMain. Some of the stories read here can also be found at our website at IndianCountryNews.com, so go there and check some of them out. And here are some of the news stories for the day from the Associated Press and other Native news sources. The state of Wisconsin has awarded another round of grants to tribes to help cover law enforcement expenses. State Justice Department officials say 10 tribes will receive a total of $692,000. Agency officials say the grants come out of the tribal gaming money the state collects. No tax dollars are used. The grants typically have been used to cover personal costs as well as purchase equipment such as uniforms and body armor. The Bad River Chippewa got $128,000 of the most recent recipient of the St. Croix Chippewa were next with $113,700. The Navajo Nation's High Court has banned elected tribal officials from doling out public money until the tribe establishes rules on their financial aid program. The court made the decision this week in a case that challenged the reduction of the tribal council from 88 members to 24. Tribal lawmakers set aside $150,000 in public money to mount the challenge. The Supreme Court justices said the appropriation was unlawful and that tribal officials failed to adequately review it. Some lawmakers have been criticized for discretionary spending. All but 11 of the former 88 lawmakers and the incoming tribal president face criminal charges in a probe over their previous spending. One of the cases has been dismissed, but a judge has not ruled yet on whether it can be refiled. And talking about the Navajo Nation, we now go to the Navajo Times correspondent Marley Shebala for an update from Window Rock, Arizona. Welcome to IndianCountryTV.com, Marley. How are you doing today?
Oh, really good. For once, it seems like I have some time here to spend with you, Paul. Usually I'm running off to meetings, but it's busy. It's busy, though. You know, inaugural events are coming up.
I'm sure one of these days in your spare time, you're going to take care of that big pile of folders and envelopes right behind you and sort through that and make sure it's all inventoried and put away properly.
Well, I'm going to actually hang up a curtain.
We're beginning a new year. The Navajo Times had a number of stories last year that were very important and compelling to not only the Navajo Nation and its people, but Indian country. Tell me a little bit about what ended up on that top 10 list for last year.
Well, the editorial team got together, our reporters with our two editors. And we voted on the top story, and that was the indictment of 78 elected officials, which includes President-elect Ben Shelley and Vice President-elect Rex Lee Jim. The number two story that the Navajo Times decided on was the election of 24 delegates. And the people came out and they made their choices overwhelmingly on who they wanted to be in the council. And that went back to our number three story, which was the Navajo Nation Supreme Court issuing a sweeping decision telling the election office, you hold an election for 24 delegates, because the election office was going to hold an election for 88 delegates and wait for 4 years to have the election for 24. And that decision also stated that the council had no right to tell the courts not to use the Neff fundamental law. And it also recognized the power of the people to decide what type of government that they wanted. And then the number four choice was the primary and general election between Linda Lovejoy and Vice President Ben Shelley, because it provided several firsts in the nation. One was that a Navajo woman took the lead in the primary election. The number two first, another first was that a New Mexican candidate took a first. And then another first was that you had two New Mexicans facing off for presidential election.
I see.
And so, yeah. And number five was, the council reacted badly to losing in court and just, several setbacks that they had. And the actions that they took in retaliation against the Supreme Court, which is
Tried to fire him, right?
involvement of Associate Justices Louise Grant and Eleanor Shirley, and they also were going to remove the Attorney General, the Deputy. In the end, they had their council meeting, and those resolutions came up before them, and they voted 3 in favor and 65 opposed to remove the Deputy Attorney General. And they didn't even want to discuss the removal of the Attorney General. And there's no resolution that has ever surfaced concerning the removal of the Chief Justice.
Okay, so the end result was is that there were removal resolutions or there weren't removal resolutions on
There
it?
were removal resolutions for the Attorney General and the Deputy Attorney General.
Okay,
But after a lengthy discussion, they voted 3 to 65 not to remove the Attorney General.
right.
And then when the resolution came forward for the removal of the Attorney General, no one would make a motion to put it on the floor. They didn't even want to discuss it.
Tell us a little bit about the inauguration and when that's going to be coming up for the Navajo Nation.
That's going to be next Tuesday, and it's going to be held outdoors. And right now, we still have snow and ice, and it's melting outdoors, and you got to bundle up. So it's going to be another pretty cold inauguration for the 24 and for the president and the vice president. But the events are going to start early at 8:30 a.m. with some music. And they're also going to have the Navajo Nation band there. But the actual inauguration won't happen until 12:30 p.m. And then they're also planning other activities. They're going to have it's a winter event. And by saying it's a winter event, it's only held during the winter, and it's a Navajo shoe game. It's a traditional game. And then there's also going to be a powwow, and that'll be at the fairgrounds. And then there's going to be a much more contemporary event, which will be held in Gallup at one of the hotels, which will be an inaugural ball.
Like your real formal suit, coat, and tie kind of a thing?
I'm not sure. You know,
Or
we haven't got
bolo tie anyway? Bolo tie?
definitely bolo ties and cowboy boots and Stetsons. You know.
You mentioned your weather down there. It always surprises me that when you're getting a huge storm down there last week with snow, and you were posting on Facebook that there was this beautiful snowfall that came down there, and we were literally in the 40s, and the snow was melting off like mad. It rained at the time you were having all this inclement weather. So if we wanted a snowmobile, we would have headed south there, Window Rock, Arizona, I guess.
Oh yeah, yeah. People are one of our photographers. Her name is Lee Jimmy, and she was talking about heading out to a lake that's up north of here, and it's called Wheatfields, and to go ice fishing. And yeah, and last week when we had the snow, the temperatures went below zero, and they froze a lot of the major water lines. The Tribal Utility Authority barely got some of those water line going on Tuesday. You know, just
Right.
2 days ago. So you had like maybe about 200 people without water
Right.
in some
Well,
areas.
that happens in Louisiana and Florida and some of those states where the houses don't have that kind of insulation. And if it gets real cold, the water lines freeze up right away because they're running through those homes without insulation. They usually don't need them. It surprised me during the wintertime, you fluctuate between what, 50 and below zero? And
Yeah, yeah, because the people don't realize that the reservation, how large it is, and that we have these, mountains, and the temperatures can just dip below zero, or they can be up in the 50s. But that's the highest temperature that we've had. I was down in Phoenix just last week, and they had some unusually cold temperatures down there, and so it has a lot to do, I believe, with climate change and what's happening.
what are you looking for this year? Do you think there's you're covering a much smaller 88 to 24? They've got to rearrange the floor. They got to rearrange anything. Do you see anything startling coming out of that new body that's there?
Well, I think that it's going to be a lot easier to get comments from each of them, and also to go to their committee meetings, because standing committee meetings. And just the other day, there was five of them that were meeting, and then they can meet
Uh-huh.
in different, just to get an agenda to
Yeah, we're
give
losing
the
you.
resident. One of the things I wish they would talk about is transparency in government. Just giving us these public documents.
Yeah. And maybe that's a possibility. Maybe there's a possibility of a Freedom of Information Act based on what the Cherokees have done. They've simply said, look, at public business is public business. You think there's ever going to a chance where they could pass a resolution like that saying public businesses, public documents is available to the public? They have a right to that.
Well, I think that's what I mean with 24 delegates. It's going to be much easier to talk to them one on one, to get them to understand, and especially with with the people saying, okay, they want to see what they're going to do, and I think the people want to see a huge change in their government. They want them to do it as quickly as possible, and that's one of the issues that we're going to be trying to get the reporters to write notebooks about, so let the people understand how difficult it is to get their public information from their public servants in their public buildings about their public money.
Well, that's interesting. I have an odd question. During the inauguration, is there any kind of highlighted feast food like a roasted goat or sheep or anything like that? They do anything special like that?
Well, they're going to, in the ad that they bought for the Navajo Times, they have that it's going to be free admission. Of course, they better have free
Uh-huh. And
admission. Luncheon is going to be. So, we're hoping that it's going to be some roast mutton, but I doubt it. I mean, they're going to. I mean, how many Navajos are there? And so I think for smaller tribes, it's probably easier, to really offer, those types of things. But who knows? They might do that.
they might have to take up a whole ranch of sheep here to feed the nation if they all turn out, I suppose. Marley, tell me what you think. Is it going to be 2011 going to be a great year?
I believe I'm always positive. I want to be positive that the 24, that the president and the vice president are going to really listen to the people, really take the people as if they really are their family. I think so many times, when we cover our tribal governments, we hear our tribal leaders always talking about, the traditional way of government, the traditional way you're supposed to treat your family, these ethics that are there, but you don't see it. And that's part of open government. That was the argument we gave to our tribal leaders when the with the Navajo Times, and saying, that's why it needs to be separate. You shouldn't be censoring it. That's un-Navajo. That's not the way you're supposed to be.
Always a joy talking to you, Marley. A few technical glitches there, but we'll get through it. Thanks for joining with us on the Native News Update today.
Well, thank you, and I hope the listeners, the viewers, will go to the NavajoTimes.org and check out our website. We have a lot of good stuff on there too, sports and everything. I mean, it's a really good news. There's nothing. The Winter Rock and the politics. You're gonna always have kind of
Right.
interesting news.
We'll go there right away. Thanks, Marley.
Okay.
And that is the latest roundup of news from Indian Country on this edition of the Native News Update. Miigwech for showing up here. Come back again soon.